notes packet, we're going to be talking about X and Y intercepts using what's called the cover-up method or solving. So we want to be able to find intercepts, X and Y, okay? On the 2.3, our equations were in, this was called slope-intercept form, okay, where we could see the slope and the y-intercept. But if it's not in that format, okay, it's given to us in standard form, which you can see this example down here is, that's where we have the x term plus or minus the y term equals the constant. Okay, this is standard form. So when it's in this format, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be substituting in a 0 for y to solve for x, or substituting in a 0 for x and solve for y. Okay, now I'm going to show you what that looks like algebraically, and then I'm going to show you why we call it the cover-up method. Okay, so we're going to look at this first example here, and I'm going to write it out twice because we're finding two things. We want the x and the y-intercept. Okay, so I'm just going to copy the equation down over here in this space because I'm going to solve twice. Okay, so first I'm going to find the x-intercept. Now what we need to remember is if we want the x-intercept, what did it say up here? Okay, to find the x-intercept, substitute 0 in for y to find the x-intercept. So substitute a 0 in for y. So in place of the y right there, I'm going to have a 0. That 3 is still going to be multiplied. We're still going to have 2x. We're still going to have equals 6. So now when I go to solve this, what is 0 times anything? 0. So 0 times 3 is just 0. Okay, that means it's not there. It's nothing. So do I actually have to write plus 0, or can I just drop that? I can just ignore it. I can drop it. Plus 0 doesn't do anything. I don't need to show subtracting 0. That does nothing. So essentially, I just have 2x equals 6. Okay, then I need to isolate the x. So I'm going to divide out the coefficient of 2. What I do to one side, I do to the other. That gets rid of the 2 and leaves me with 3. Now my x-intercept is when y is 0. So the y is 0, and we found the x is 3. So that's the x-intercept, and I'll come over here and plot that. That means I'm at 3 on the x-axis. I went right 3, up 0 from the origin. Bless you. Now I wrote the equation again because now I have to do the same thing, but for the y-intercept. Okay, so if I want to find the y-intercept, it says up here in the instructions, it says substitute 0. Where did my pen go? Nope, there it is. Okay, substitute 0 for x and solve for y to find the y-intercept. So this time we're going to plug a 0 in for x. So in place of the x, I'm going to put a 0. Everything else stays the same. We said a second ago, 0 times anything is 0. So 2 times 0 is also 0. And we said if you have a plus 0, like the 0 does nothing, just drop it. It's gone. So really I just have 3y equals 6. And then I need to divide out the 3, the coefficient, divide it to the other side to reduce that to just y, which comes out to 2. So that means my y-intercept happens when x is 0. Remember, I plugged a 0 in for x, and the y is 2. So I can plot that on my graph at 0, 2. That means from the origin, I go over 0, up 2. Of course, now it's not writing. There. There it goes. Okay, so 0, 2. Once you have 2 points, you can draw a line. A line goes through any 2 points. Okay, if you wanted to get additional points, if you're kind of picky on how straight your line is and you're like, I need more points, you could simply count the slope between these and then repeat it. So from this the x-intercept to the y-intercept, it's up 2, left 3. So if I wanted to, I could go up 2, left 3 again, and I could put another point there, or I could go down 2, right 3, put a point on that end. Okay, you could get however many points you want to help you sketch your line nice and straight. I've got rulers in the back if you want a straight edge to help you make them perfectly straight. Okay, but that's our equation. We found the x-intercept and the y-intercept by substituting in 0 for the opposite variable. Okay, so this is the algebraic process. This is why it works out this way, because multiplying by 0 makes it go away. So what the cover-up method is saying is, okay, instead of having to show these steps in the middle here each time, just simply cover up that variable. Okay, so in number 2, for instance, I'm going to write it again because I'm finding x and y. So I want this written over here twice. X plus 2y equals -6. Okay, so first I'll do x-intercept. So if I'm looking for the x-intercept, remember we said up here we would plug a 0 in for the y, but that just makes it go away. So instead of showing all that work, I'm just going to cover up the y term. It's gone. Cover it up. You can cover it up with your finger and then do this in your head, or you can literally cover it up by scratching it out like that. But if I cover up the y term, all that's there is x equals -6. This 2, that's the number problem 2. That's not in the equation. The equation, x does not have a coefficient, so there's not even anything to divide over. So it's simply -6, 0, and I'm ready to plot that. So there's my x-intercept at -6, 0. Now for my y-intercept, we said in the last problem to get the y-intercept, you plug in a 0 for x. Instead of plugging in the 0, just cover up the x term. The x term's just going to go away. So if I cover that up with my finger or scratch it out to cover it up, all I have is 2y equals -6. Now this time I do have a step I still have to do because that 2 is being multiplied. The opposite is to divide. What we do to one side, we do to the other. So I end up getting -3. So that happens when x is 0. My pen not working now. When x is 0, y is -3. That means from the origin, you go over 0, down 3. If you want additional points, count the slope between those and repeat it. Okay, so between this blue, the blue to the red, that's up 3, left 6. So you could go up 3, left 6 again. That's going to put me off the graph. Or you could go down 3, right 6. okay, and get another point if that helps you to graph it. Okay, and then draw your line. There it is. That makes sense, that process? So actually solving this way, and you can do this by simply covering up the x or y term. Okay, and then number 2 here says solve the equation for y and use the slope-intercept format to find the y-intercept. And then you graph it and find the x-intercept. Okay, so you can do that. That's an alternate method, but I think this cover-up method is probably the easiest. So I think that's the best route for y'all. Okay, so let's flip it over and let's try a couple more on the back. Okay, so here I'm going to repeat the equation again. I'm finding x and y intercept. I'm going to go ahead while I've got my black pen, and I'm going to go ahead keep that one as well. All right, so to get the x-intercept, I cover the y term. So the y is gone. I've just got 3x equals -8. And then I just need to divide the coefficient. That 3 that was being multiplied, the opposite is divide. So that eliminates and leaves me with x equals, now this one does not divide or reduce, okay? It's going to be a fraction, that's okay. So that's -8/3. Sorry, it was supposed to be red. 0 for the x-intercept. Now, -8/3, if you prefer to leave it as a fraction, fantastic. If you want to get it as a decimal, that's approximately 2.6 repeating. In this case, -2.6 repeating. So I would say -2.67. 0. Okay, so when you go to graph that, you're going to go left 2.67. So between -2 and -3. So approximately there. And then for the y-intercept, I'm going to cover up the x. So cover up the x term. Notice I did not cover up the minus. That sign is attached to the y term. Okay, so that is still -2y equals -8. And now I've got to get rid of that coefficient, which is -2 this time. That -2 is being multiplied by y. The opposite is to divide. A negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 8 divided by 2 is 4. So 0, 4 is my y-intercept. So I can draw a line just through those 2 points, or I can try to count the slope. Now this one, I won't really be able to count the slope well because that was a decimal. So I'm just going to draw my point through draw my line through those 2 points the best I can. And there is my line. All right, last but not least, we've got one that's not in standard form. So if you look at this last equation, it's not x plus y equals constant. Okay, we've got our y term equals our x term. There is no constant. So let's see what happens when there's no constant. There's just a y term and an x term. So when I go to get my x-intercept, if I use cover-up method, I'm covering up the y term. We said that's the same thing as 0. But if there's nothing else on that side, we actually do have to write the 0. And then how do we get rid of that 6 on the right side? I want to solve for x. How do I eliminate that 6 that's being multiplied? Do the opposite, which is divide. And 0 divided by anything is still 0. So what happens is I get 0. I plugged in a 0 for y and I got a 0 for x. Where is 0, 0 on my coordinate grid? That's the origin. So when I go to plot this, is that just my y-intercept or is that also my x-intercept? Both. Yeah, it's both. If you have a point on the origin, it is both the x and y-intercept. If you need to make a note of that, okay, the origin 0, 0 is both an x and y intercept. Okay, so technically, I don't even have to solve for the x-intercept, but let's just show the work on how you would see you still get 0. Because if I'm looking for the y-intercept, I cover up the x, which makes that 0. And I would still have to divide the 2 over to get rid of the 2. And I would again get 0, because 0 divided by a number is 0. So I end up with 0, 0 as both my x and y-intercept, which is good. If you get the origin as an x-intercept, you better get it as a y, and vice versa. Because if you're on the origin, you're on both axes. Now, can I draw a line with just one point plotted? If you remember geometry, lines can be drawn between any 2 points. I've got to have a second point before I can draw a line. I have no idea what direction to draw a line through this point in. So I need a second point. Okay, so what I could do is I could pick an x value, like 1 or 2 or whatever, and plug it in for x and solve and see what y is, and then plot a point there. Okay, or I can take the equation I was originally given and rearrange it to solve for y so we can see the slope of the line. Okay, so here's the original equation is 2y equals 6x. If I am solving for y, I would divide the 2 over. And when I do that, I get y equals, and then 6 divided by 2 is 3. So here's the equation. If we think of that in terms of y equals mx plus b, when we have it solved for y, what part of that is our slope? Remember, m is the slope. So here, that's 3. So our slope is 3. So I could come over here and I could count. Remember, it's rise over run. So if it's no fraction, you can put it, oh my gosh, stop zooming in and out. You can put it over 1 if you need to. Remember, that's your rise over run. So from that point at the origin that we plotted, we could rise 3, run 1. Or we could go down 3, left 1. Okay? But if I found my slope, and I could draw my line through that point. And I can also confirm here in y equals mx plus b form. Remember what we said? We said that b is the y-intercept. There is no b here. That means b is 0. Oops, that's supposed to be a pen. Okay, because there's nothing added after 3x, b is 0. And remember, that represents your y-intercept, which we found up here to be 0. And it all kind of comes full circle. All right. So now you're going to have practice over 2.4. And I'm going to pull up our Canvas. So I just recorded the video, so it'll be posted here in a minute. But here's all of unit 2. There's 2.1, the problems you were supposed to do. There's 2.2. There's 2.3, and here I've posted at the bottom. This is 2.4. Okay, so I'm going to pass that worksheet out, and those are the problems that you're going to complete. If you have not finished 1, 2, or 3, 2.1, 2.2, or 2.3, those are due today. You can finish those first, okay, and get them turned in. Then you can work on 2.4 if there's time left, or you may have to work on 2.4 outside of class. Remember, you can use cat tracks or work at home. But 2.4 won't be due till the end of this week, Friday, so you've got plenty of time.